Hello and welcome back to another Doctor Who action figure review. Today we're going to be taking a look at another brand new B&M set, which is the 10th Doctor's Collector set, which is available now in B&M stores. So before we actually start the review, I know this set in particular has set off a lot of discourse online, considering how unimaginative this set really is. As much as I don't want to rant about these certain views on something such as toys, I kind of have to agree with some of the points raised. It's not something I was jumping in the air for when the news of these sets first came out, considering I have loads of variants of this particular incarnation. But before I get ahead of myself, let's begin by taking a look at the packaging. So as usual, the packaging comes in the same blue and grey style guide with the washed out TARDIS on the sides, the current Doctor Who logo which has been stacked, gold limited foil edition sticker, and then moving to the back, like with the 8th Doctor set, the promotional images are no longer present. But taking a look at some of the information, the text reads, in this new set, we have a figure of the 10th Doctor in his third variant of outfit and wearing his long duster style overcoat. This figure has ball jointed shoulders, not released before. Now, sadly, this is no longer present on the figure, but as I previously mentioned in my review of the 13th Doctor set, there was a prototype of the 10th Doctor that actually had the ball jointed shoulders, and it was meant to come out in that set supposedly, and then it was supposed to be released in this current set. Sadly, something has gone wrong, whether it was just a budgeting thing or an error. We sadly missed out on that. Instead, we have that basic figure that has been released several hundred times at this point with the basic articulation. Out of the box, the figures look great, but one thing in particular that has made many fans scratch their heads thinking, what on earth is that third figure all about? He never appeared in the show like that. What on earth were they thinking? Why have they done this? But before we talk about him, let's begin with the first figure. So beginning with the blue suited version, this was an appearance that was first seen in Smith & Jones. But from what the packaging states is that both versions with the blue suit are from the wedding of Sarah Jane Smith, which you can tell by the new tie variant. Now, the one thing that has been changed here is that the red stripes have now vanished from this figure itself. Now, I don't know whether this was a budgeting thing or whether it was a completely different issue, but it is a bit of a shame as a lot of fans were speculating whether it was a new suit just for that said story. The blue has also been updated from the original, but if I'm honest, I think the original blue paint apps on the first time around got it quite right. By all means, I'm not a massive expert on the 10th Doctor's costume, but the blue suit itself always appeared lighter than it was in the show and on publicity images. In reality, it definitely is a lot darker than it was depicted on screen. Specifically in the Sarah Jane episode, where you could barely see the pinstripes at all with all that bright lighting. But in several screen caps, you can actually see this. So hopefully you can put your minds to rest with those regards. The head is the same one that has been used on other various versions of the 10th Doctor. You know, the paint apps are nice and crisp and does resemble to what David Tennant looked like specifically on his earlier run. But it's a shame that they never got round to using the later head sculpt with that spiked up hair. I think that would have been a lot better. From what I've been told, the sculpt was actually altered to be used on that tuxedo figure that was released many moons ago. But I don't know how true this is. It's pure speculation from what I've been told, but it's a huge shame if that is true, as I always thought that head sculpt resembled the 10th Doctor even more than this earlier one does. But then moving down, taking a look at the shirt and tie, the shirt has been painted in this brilliant light blue to match the colour of the shirt seen on screen, and the tie itself has been painted in this sort of burgundy colour with the pinkish dashes over the top, just to try and replicate the pattern as seen on the tie he wore in the episode. Finally, moving down to the Converse, they had just been painted in a burgundy colour with a dirty wash over the top, with the blue stripe running along the sides and the back of the shoe. Like I said, it's a really nice figure, but I feel like this look has pretty much been done to death in regards of the head sculpt. Like I said, it would have been nice if we've seen more of the updated head sculpt, but clearly it wasn't meant to be. Briefly taking a look at the coated variant, this is pretty much the same figure, just with the addition of the coat, and the suit jacket here seems to be more of a hardened plastic than the coatless version, which was just a PVC piece. The coat itself has just been painted in a light brown, and it's quite similar to the 13 Doctor set variant, considering that they've actually painted the buttons a darker brown, just to make that detail pop out more. Just like the non-coated variant, he sadly has no pinstripes whatsoever. But I can look past it, considering I own the original version, and it's not as obvious here because the overcoat is covering most of the suit up. Again, very nice figure for what it is. I can't complain about that, but since I have many of these, like with the other suited variants, I just can't get overexcited by this. But as a completist, I definitely had to go out and get this. Well, my partner had to go and get it for me, but still. And on a positive note, it's something to add to the shelves with the Sarah Jane figures, which I will most likely do. So, on to the last figure of the set, we have this obscure variant, which is this ragged look for the 10th Doctor, or how I've nicknamed him, Raggedy 10. So, the story behind this guy is that he's actually based off a comic book cover created by Will Brooks. A lot of people were confused by this variant, considering he never appeared like this in the show whatsoever. But I kind of had an inkling that it was based off this when these announcements were made. A lot of fans were a bit confused on why they decided to do this. In all honesty, I don't really mind. I quite like it when character options make figures from spin-off media. I know it may not be everyone's cup of tea, but this was something that I thought would be a very cool variant. But for people watching, this is the cover that this figure is supposedly based upon. As you can see, Will Brooks has altered the photo of Matt Smith to feature David Tennant instead, and for some odd reason, he is holding a bone. Now, I don't really read the comics that much, but from what I've been told, this variant doesn't actually appear in the comics whatsoever. Nothing at all. It has nothing to do with the story whatsoever. It was a bit of artwork on the front, and that was it. It was something that Titan Comics used to do with most of their run, and they would add different variants of covers on each of the comics. But on a positive note, it's a cool looking figure. So what they have done here is basically take the 11th Doctor's body and basically stuck a 10th Doctor head on top with a few revised paint apps. That's literally what the figure is. One thing that doesn't make sense to me is that they have the same head sculpt, as his hair looks all neat and tidy, whereas the spiky haired variant would be 100 times better on this variant. I've seen many customizers over the years make this figure, and I feel like the revised variant would have made much more sense in my view, but it's by the by. I still think it's a great looking figure. So as I said, same head sculpt, but the main point of interest is, of course, the costume. Starting with the shirt, it's been painted in a similar light blue to the other two. It has this really nice dirty wash over the top. I don't know whether that's meant to be mud or scorch marks, but it really looks good nonetheless. The tails on the shirt are also really nice. It makes it look really worn and tatty. The tie has also been updated to match the other two, where they've just changed the pattern to look more like his floral tie, and that has just been represented in the same colours as on the other two variants. The trousers on this figure, however, are more akin to his brown suited trousers, although they insist on painting it black for some reason instead of brown like the suit actually was. And on top of that, you also have the blue pinstripes running down his legs and onto some of the torso. However, if you move to the back, they have sadly missed out on adding the stripes on his rear end. It's a bit of a shame because, if I recall, they managed to do that on the 11th Doctor, but I suppose it's just a cock-up I will have to get over. And then moving down to the Converse, this time they have been painted cream to represent what he wore when he wore the brown suit, and they've just been given this really dirty wash, which looks outstanding, I must admit, as they were pretty dirty in the show. And just like the burgundy Converse, you have the same blue line present going along the bottom of the trainers. Again, this is a really lovely variant. I think out of all of them, I quite like this one the most. Like I said, I know it's not to everyone's taste, but I absolutely love it when they actually do spin-off media figures. It just adds a bit of variety to the collection, and I think some of my favourite figures are from spin-off medias. Overall, I have to admit, this is going to be known as one of the weakest sets that they've produced so far. And like I said, I definitely agree. I think a lot of fans' expectations were a little higher this year, considering what we got last year with all those new monsters and villains. But I'm glad we actually got something out of 2022. And still, this is only the first wave. We still have a load of new figures to be announced in the near future. But with this set in general, I feel like the figures are severely outdated. I know it's all down to do with budgeting, but in a way, this could still be a great opportunity for fans who might be picking up their very first 10th Doctor figure. I feel like the paint apps on these are really good, however, I still think the originals are probably superior. I suppose they were just trying to depict what was seen on screen instead of trying to get the details just right, but still, they are nice enough variants nonetheless. And the Raggedy Tent is a very odd choice to do, but like I said, I don't particularly mind this variant as it adds something new to the shelves, even though there's no narrative behind this variant. So that's pretty much it on this bizarre set. I hope you enjoyed this review, and stay tuned for my next review, which will be on the history of the Dalek set, set number 9, which will be out very soon. Until then, bye for now, and happy hunting.